so glad that we have these times together. I'm going to read Acts chapter 9, verse 8. I'm reading from the New Living Translation. And it says this. Of course, Jesus appears to Saul on the road to Damascus. The Passion Translation says it was an explosive light that happened and sound that happened to Paul on the road to Damascus. And so verse 8 says, Saul picked himself up off the ground. Obviously, when the energy of God, the power of God arrives in such a dramatic way, the human body just doesn't have the capacity to handle the power and the glory of God. And so Saul picked himself up off the ground. But when he opened his eyes, he was blind. So his companions led him to, by the hand, to Damascus. So this is an amazing thing that he has such a dramatic impact on his body. This is such a big thing that he's blind. Now, in this session, I want to talk to you for a few moments about whether what happened to Saul here was something that is a regular principle or something that God does on a regular basis or not. Because verse 9 says, he remained there blind for 3 days and did not eat or drink. Now, I've really put this before the Lord and read some different scriptures and different events that occurred in the Bible, specifically in the New Testament. But there are references in the Old Testament as well. But there is a lot that the Apostle Paul has to say, Saul, who became Paul, about the darkness and the light, and how even when there can be no fellowship between those who are of the light and those who are in the darkness. So darkness is a form of blindness. In this case, Saul, as we spoke in the last session, had a great ambition. He had a great desire. He was really persuaded that he was going to do harm to the church. And when Jesus meets him on the road to Damascus, effectively the light of the glory of God interrupted the vision, the sight, the goals, the objectives, the ambition that Saul had. Jesus interrupted that, and he has a whole new life planned for Paul. Arguably, you can argue with me, I think the word is very clear on this, that God always intended to use Saul, who became Paul. He always intended to use him, but he was just waiting for the moment when Saul would be ready to have this encounter with God. The point I want to make with blindness here is God, the light of God, so exploded into him that he was blind for 3 days. Now, if I just look from a physiological point of view, was the light so strong that God blinded him for 3 days because the light was so strong that it was just a physiological thing? Or was there a spiritual thing that was involved here that Saul would be blind for 3 days? Well, certainly, the Bible talks that in different versions, that when Jesus appeared to Saul, his brightness was like that of a noonday sun. Now, if you look up at the noonday sun and you look at it and then you're blinded in your eyes for a brief moment, but it could be a minute even, or 2 minutes. If you look at the sun long enough, you couldn't really, because it would do damage to your eyes if you looked at it for too long. Well, I believe that's what happened with Saul, is that Saul saw the glory of God. And in the moment when God appeared to him in such explosive light, he was blinded, but God blinded him physically so that he would understand that the rest of his life he would be blind and would not be able to see the future of his life without giving his life to God. I think there are many, many people that are blind to their future because they have not embraced the light of God, the light of God's plan, the light of what God has for your future. And I dare say that if you find you're wandering around and it's like you're bumping into things and you're not certain of what is actually your future look like, it is possible that you are blind to the plan that God has for you. And God is waiting for you to have an encounter with Him so that He can reveal His plans to you, so that you can walk in the plan and purpose that He has for your life rather than the one you've chosen for yourself. There's two sides to this. The one is that you can't see because God won't open it to you until you are ready. And the other side of it is, of course, if you're walking in darkness, you won't see that light. Well, I pray that you will see the light and that you will make those decisions to follow Jesus, just as Saul did. And we'll talk more about that in the next session.